Seth Goldman is the founder of Honest Tea and the executive chairman of Beyond Meat. His business success is powered by purpose, transparency, and a relentless ambition to build a healthier tomorrow. Back in 2015, as we were starting Super Coffee, we sent Seth a cold email seeking his advice, and he has selflessly coached us through trials and challenges of building a beverage brand. Today's live episode is from our Super Coffee Winter Summit in Washington, D.C.
The thing we learned from Honest too early on was really having that strong purpose, and you talked about passion a lot.
Yeah.
So could you share a little bit about how your passion too, because again, you're going in, I remember talking about your business plan, you didn't even talk about distribution in it.
Yeah.
So talk a little bit about how passion played such a role in the past 20 years.
I would say there are a few different areas. Well, so the first one was just there's got to be a less sweet drink out there, not just because that's what I was looking for from a taste perspective, but when we look at all the calories people are ingesting, and certainly at the time, it's not as true today, but at the time, all bottled drinks had whether they were soda or tea, they all had the same level of calories, and you just don't need that many calories. So we could find ways to give people drinks with less calories. And the other thing was this whole idea that, and we saw this, we didn't do, I'd say, formal focus groups, but as we spoke to people, it was clear people didn't trust the beverage industry. This was around the time that Sobe had kind of risen, and it was all about hype, and like, they were going to it was curing cancer and sharpening brain acuity, and it was just like, come on guys, you just sell a drink, don't get too excited. And so, let's be honest about what's in a drink. Let's actually say what's in there. Let's make it clear what's in there, and not promise less or more. Just make it what it is. And so that was a whole different approach to business too. And then I'd always had this desire to help create economic opportunity in places that didn't have access to it. I didn't know what fair trade was at the time. So it was just this idea that we know tea is one of the world's cheapest commodities. We should be able to buy great tasting tea and be able to create economic opportunity in places that lack access to it without some market subsidies. And as we dug deeper, we found out, in fact, Barry had been to India, and he went to an auction, and he sort of saw, after they had basically auctioned off all the good tea, the stuff that was kind of left, literally like the stuff on the ground, that was what they sort of packaged up and sold to companies like Snapple that were just sort of using like the lowest quality tea. And Barry's like, wow, we could spend 4 times, 5 times on our tea ingredient, and it would still only cost us a few pennies a bottle. So let's make some really good tea, and in so doing, let's also, what became fair trade, let's make sure there's opportunity for people that lack access to it.
So you're saying that Snapple isn't made from the best stuff on earth?
Yeah, I think that's
So you've always challenged us with 2 questions, and that's why will you succeed at first?
Yeah.
That seems to be the easier one to answer, especially for you guys, and for us, it's the world needed a less sweet, less calorie tea.
Yeah.
But why will you succeed once others copy you? And that's a lot of brands can't answer that.
Right.
What was Honest Tea's answer to that?
So for us, it started with just having a clear point of difference, right? We were different, and that got us to the shelf. Once you get to the shelf, then do you have a brand people will remember and love? Yes. Do you have a team that's passionate and determined and is not going to settle for second place? Yes. And then are you going to continue to innovate? Are you going to continue to, so you start with your advantage, but a first mover advantage only counts if you keep moving. If you're the first mover and then you just get there and stay, everyone else will catch up to you.
Yeah, and that's a cool point too, because you talked about first mover advantage, but you have to keep moving. And I think the advantage that we saw, because again, starting in a dormer, we had no resources, right? So you have to kind of get that consumer feedback. Being first, you can get that feedback faster. So I guess talk about that too earlier on, because some of the people who were here from the beginning saw how bad the product was. I'm sorry for that.
We talked about that, right?
Yeah. Oh yeah, absolutely. So how did you guys kind of take those hits early on, and what did you learn from your customer?
Yeah, so it's funny, we started, everything was super unsweet, sort of like 17 calories at the max, and what happened was we started to try to cross over into mainstream channels. We just weren't getting the traction, and I know Mike remembers that. And then what we did was we realized we could get a little bit sweeter, not a lot sweeter, but what we called just a tad sweet. And that was what we hit was our sweet spot. That was like, okay, then it's sweet enough that somebody can buy it in a convenience store and not just be like, whoa, I wasn't expecting that. Okay, well, it's a little less sweet, but then they can get used to it. So that was, I'd say, one big inflection point. The other one was when we started to expand. Honest Kids was a huge step. I mean, that's now really a mega brand, and that was taking the same properties around Honest and just expanding it to another user base.
Amazing.
Yeah.
Awesome. So A couple things, a couple similarities here. We say that we don't sell coffee. We've never sold a bottle of coffee. This team exists to mass produce positive energy. Right? It's bigger than coffee. It's bigger than beverage.
Yeah.
And if we were just selling coffee, we wouldn't have the passion or the drive or the vision. So what was driving you, especially through the tough times, like a 1 million bottle recall, like negotiating contracts with big guys?
It was this belief that we were, just like us, we weren't just selling tea either, right? We were selling, it was this whole different approach to business, and it was embodied. You had organic, you had sort of health consciousness, environmental consciousness, and fair trade. And my point of view is it's all one circle, it's all part of that same entity, and it's a little bit like, think about when you see a tornado or a cyclone on a map, it just like keeps swirling around, and so that was what we were selling. And maybe one year, like during the low carb craze, all right, people aren't getting good cars, but organic, they're not going to be moving away from transparency in how their products are made. And then during the economic downturn, okay, well, organic may be expensive, but people are still looking for like lower calorie drinks. So there's just always going to be some dimension of what's in your circle that's going to be more powerful as part of your proposition. And then other times it's just, hey, our field marketing team came up with an amazing idea for us to execute and get new people in, and that will drive it too. So you can't rely on just one part of your proposition, or just one part of your team.
Absolutely. So we're going to transition to growth. You mentioned first mover and speed.
Yeah.
If this team has anything, if the three of us have anything, we like to move fast,
Yeah.
and sometimes perhaps too fast. But you saw the growth this year, and we're proud to say last year we did $4.5 million in sales. This year we're going to come in right at 28.
That's
28
amazing.
million.
You guys, that's really impressive.
Thank you,
Yeah.
thank you. And so I guess the question is, next year, I mean, it's been put out there to this team, we backed into the numbers.
Yeah.
We can do 90 million next year. But so I guess what problems did you guys encounter going from 30 to 90 rather than startup age?
So one thing I'd say is just be careful with it. Like, it's good to have an internal goal, but don't present to you've heard me say this before. Don't present to investors that you're going to hit 90, and don't make your bonuses contingent on hitting 90 either. Like, make an aggressive goal for sure, but if someone doubles their sales, triples their sales, they shouldn't feel, oh man, I only doubled my sales. That's not good enough. So because we did that a few times, and that's that. You shouldn't beat yourself up for doing what other people aren't doing. So.
Thank you.
Right? Yeah, so just because, so it's great to have goals, but I've seen companies literally, burn out. There was this classic case of people that probably don't remember Fresh Samantha back in the day, but
I do.
remember what happened? So nice guy, and he sort of went to this guy, Doug Levy, he said, we're gonna go, I think they were like at 18 million, they went to 40 million, and then they said the next year they want to go to 100, and they just they went on a spending spree. They hit like 60, which that's not bad growth, but they ran out of cash. The team was burned out, and they ended up basically selling to Twinwalla and going out of business. So you just got to be careful to make sure you've got the team in place, the talent in place, and the resources in place to do all that. And look, Beyond Meat's on a tear right now. We grew our most recent quarter growth was 250% over the previous year. So. And so that's challenging. And the first step is get the right people, right? Like if you don't have the right people in place, and that includes like quality, just sort of planning, inventory, all that stuff, you get into some real challenges. And those are good problems to have. It's better than the opposite. Oh, we got no demand, we're not able to grow. But just you just gotta be careful. And at the end of the day, remember that any growth over 100% is still good growth. So just you just got to be. It's just there's a little bit of a discipline to it because it can be challenging.
100%. You talk a lot about stressful times and
Yeah.
negotiating contracts with Jerry Rita and all that. And one of our favorite stories is when you were eating pizza that night and something happened. So just talking about you have 70 maniacs here in the room that work hard every day.
Yeah.
We give unlimited paid time off too. So we always are focusing on stress management. But can you tell the story?
Yeah, it's just about stress. So look, you're doing stuff that other mortal people aren't doing. So sometimes it does get stressful. The story you're referring to is when this was really in our first year. We had just done our first production run, and I was at a family picnic. It was the 4th of July, I'm having a piece of pizza and I feel something really like hard and crunchy. I'm like, well, that should be in a pizza. And I realized it was my tooth had cracked because, so I go to the dentist. I said, what happened here? She said, oh yeah, you're grinding your teeth at night. I can look at your teeth. They're all like, you're grinding your teeth at night. Are you under any stress? Yeah, I guess I think I am. And so she said, all right, well, you got a few options. You can try to like listen to music before you go to bed and do yoga. Do some, reading of some poems or something, and then, or you can just like buy a mouth guard, and you're still gonna grind your teeth, but at least you got a buffer. And I say, I gotta get the mouth guard. I still wear the mouth guard, and I think that's a recognition. Like this isn't like sailing away on an island. Right? This is gonna be tough. It's still tough, but it does mean you got to be self-aware. And then you do have to take care of yourself. You do have to, this is a marathon, it's not a sprint. You guys you're running really fast, but if it's a sprint, you're gonna give out, before you get all the way around the track. And so you gotta take care of yourself. I think that's a good idea about the getting time off or doing it the right way. But I always think you gotta take the other parts. So it's like a building with a foundation. You gotta take care of your foundation. So you gotta have physical health, you gotta make sure yes, the work is demanding, you're walking around a lot, but you've also got to be able to like take care of your core. If you're a specialty athlete, and you only do one exercise, then you don't have that strong base. So you guys know about that. You got to take care, make sure you're present for the people around you who love you and who you love, and so that's family. And so make that investment and be with them, and then whatever else motivates you or connects you to something. Whether that's being out in nature or for some people that's religion, whatever it is, you just got to invest in that because it gets tough. It is tough.
100%. And talking about family, at our last retreat, we had Julie Rice, the founder of SoulCycle, speak.
Yeah.
And as she built her business, she was also raising a family. And we have some of our super moms and super dads out here who are building their families as they build this company with us. But you obviously had your boys growing up. Can you talk just about how you kind of managed being Seth of Honesty, then Seth at home, and how that kind of works?
Yeah, I mean, it's so fun. So my Honesty is 22 years old. Our youngest son, Isaac, is also 22 years old. So I basically have 4 sons. And we are all still so connected. And they've grown up with the business. They've been part of it. Our middle son, Ellie, was the one who came up with the idea for Honest Kids, and what's just happened is he and my oldest son, Jonah, they were traveling. They're actually living at home with us now, which has just been a blast, and so we're launching some new stuff, new businesses with them, which is going to be really neat. But one thing that I did that in retrospect seems almost surreal, but I coached Isaac's travel baseball team. Travel baseball is not a light undertaking like it means. Tuesday and Thursday, I was basically out of the office at 3:15 because I had to go. I drove the carpool. So, and then weekends we're going to tournaments and stuff. And so there were more than like dozens of occasions where I'm like, I can't go to practice. I can't. But the carpool's dependent. Like, I got to go to practice. Like, and so, sometimes we drove fast to practice. But I was always there. And this was, I'm dating myself, but this was before I had a cell phone. So I was on the field throwing a ball with the kids, and I was not, throwing the ball and, texting or whatever. I was all present. And that's one of the reasons we have such a great relationship. And, because it can be that a kid would resent, like, that 4th son got more attention than we did and stuff. But in fact, Isaac is just now, he's the first employee of an entrepreneurial company out in California. So he totally got addicted to it. It's funny, I ran into a friend who saw the CEO, and he said, well, what does that do with the company? He said, well, Isaac's the CEO of this company. Just because he knows what he's doing. So, I think you have to be disciplined. So what do? I don't work late at the office. I'm home for dinner. Now, I'll work after dinner, but I'm home for dinner. I'm present when I'm there. And when I travel, I'll do extra long travel. So I'll literally go to California for the day, get it all done, fly back so I can wake up and have breakfast with it. That was when the boys were growing up. Now it's a little different, but you have to make those decisions. And at the end of the day, something's got to give. So I'm probably a little bit less of a schmoozer, so I don't go to cocktail receptions or whatever. But I have dinner with my kids, and those were the right decisions. And that's also worth noting. you know, especially for me, my wife was on the front lines of all of this, and so just making sure I always, whatever, if there was something that was important to her, I always had to defer on that. It could never only be about me.
That's awesome. That's awesome, and I think, like, from an optics perspective, investors might be like, dude, why are you playing baseball at 3 p.m.? But we would argue that that's actually more conducive to your work. So, like, would you say that prioritizing your family, prioritizing yourself, even though it doesn't translate to selling coffee or selling tea, makes you better at what you do?
So one thing that I've been talking about a lot, and this is why you guys and what you're doing is so awesome, is that the single most important resource you guys have, it isn't time, it's energy. It really is. It's because you can be present, but if you don't have the right energy, then you're not circulating that. And so the energy you give out is what people pick up on. And so right, when you guys talk about the fact you're selling positive energy, because that's what it's about, but it really is. And so you're better off, if you're with your team only for 1 hour, but you got the right energy, you're better off than being with the team for 4 hours with the wrong energy. And so you got to have that energy. Whatever gives you that energy, whatever gives you that joy, that's what you've got to make sure you're bringing to it. And you'll see it with your accounts. You'll see it with the other people who interact with the business and the brand.
Love it, love it. And energy doesn't mean drinking a super coffee when you're tired. Cool. So let's we started talking about Beyond Meat. That's fascinating. And for a few things. So, like, you guys have a very ambitious goal. You just want to change the way the world eats.
And we are changing it.
Yeah, absolutely. So I think the one thing that we'd like to start with is, obviously you're the executive chairman. This is a big part of your life right now, but it wasn't your baby the same way Honest Tea was. So what was that like? How'd you buy in? How did you meet the ground?
That's a good question. Because so we had sold Honest Tea to Coke in 2011, and I was still there, but I was always thinking, gosh, am I ever going to be as passionate about a business as I've been about Honest Tea, which, for me, obviously was so connected to me. And our family's been vegetarian for 14 years now, but at the time, I guess we were sort of 7 years into it, and felt like we were always happy with that decision from an ethical perspective, but always dissatisfied with that decision from a culinary perspective. And what I mean by that, I've joked before that veggie burgers are a conspiracy by the meat industry to discourage people from being vegetarian. Because you taste it once, you say, oh man, I can't be a vegetarian because that's what I got to do. And so my wife read an article about this company getting started out on the West Coast. It was under $1 million in sales. They weren't in retail, and she said, but it was trying to replicate the taste and texture of meat using only plants. And she said, if that company worked, that'd be awesome. In fact, it was her birthday. She said, that would be the best birthday present ever. And I'm a bad birthday present buyer. So I sent an email to info@beyondmeat.com and said, I read about what you guys are trying to do, and if I can help out. I guess it was around, so anyway, the book, I had just written the book. I sent the copy of the book. I know you guys were knew about that. And so went out and met the CEO because I was out for something else, and we hit it off. And then I started having a consultation, not too different from what we've done over the years, But every Friday, we just talk about what's the challenges, and I give a little coaching, and then we moved it to every other day, because there's a lot of challenges, and then I, joined as a board member, investor, and then became executive chair of the board, and it's just been really amazing to see that grow, and we're part of a movement, and we've become a face of the movement, but there's a huge tailwind to this. So when I say we are changing, I mean, just think about what's happened, and 18 months ago, no grocery store had plant-based products in their meat section. You go to a Safeway or Giant now, or a lot of other Kroger, it's a big part of the section, and it's growing. And other brands are coming in, but other brands are already getting kicked out because, just because you're first mover doesn't mean, and others are going to follow, but they got to have a great product, and there's a lot of copycats out there.
Yeah, it's amazing. And as an entrepreneur, like you said, you have that conviction and belief in yourself. You did at Honest Tea. But putting yourself on the other side of the table, with Beyond, you were an outsider, you were basically an investor, and you were analyzing the business like that. So what do you look for in entrepreneurs or business plans? I mean, what was the connection?
So for me, it really does. And when I say I go with my gut, it's literally like, what am I hungry for? Like, I'm vegetarian. I hated, veggie burgers and needed more protein. So I was like, well, that makes sense. I'm lactose intolerant and vegetarian, so I'm looking for like a plant-based dairy company that's going to work. So it's things that I just intuitively make sense, and then there's a positive impact to it as well. So if I found all those things, it was like an ice cream company, I'm like, yeah, I don't know if I'd get as excited about that. I'd want to feel like, is there a positive element that, you know, whether around sustainability or around health or around creating economic opportunity, something that's going to do more than that. And then I think the other piece, and this is key, and one reason I'm so fond of you guys, is the leadership. You want people who have passion, you want people who have humility, and just incredible determination.
All right, guys, we're going to open it up to some questions. If you have a question, please stand up and ask Seth directly. I see Sean Delaney, one of our early investors, has the first question here. Sean, Mike, it's yours, brother.
Cool. Seth, I think for everyone, just thanks for coming out. This is really cool to hear you talk. You mentioned about growth, mindset, learning. Jim just asked you, what did you bring from Honest Tea?
Yeah.
What did you change going to Beyond Meat? What business principles did you think were right going to that
this is a great one. That's a really fun question because everyone who was with Honest Tea knows how cheap I was, and I'm still using the same desk that I fished out of the trash can, 20 years ago. So
4 or 5 roommates.
Yeah, we shared rooms. So,
6.
Yeah.
Mikey P has his own room now.
Yeah, hey, he deserves it. Yeah. So I was really cheap, and because I knew, that $10 million, we had to stretch it a long way, and every dollar we took in from an investment, we were one step toward losing control. And so at Beyond Meat, we're looking at spending all this money on R&D, millions of dollars, and we're not making money. We lost, just to give you a sense of it, this was just like 4 years ago. It was like $35 million in a year. That's more than $1 million a month. And I'm walking in with my Honest Tea mates, like, oh my gosh, what's going on? But the belief was, you've got to get, because this category is so R&D driven, you've got to keep investing in that science. And it paid off. We just announced in that quarter where we did $92 million, it was our first profitable quarter. And that was way sooner than, and it was also neat because in a year where Uber and Lyft are going public, just burning billions of dollars a year, and here we are, growing and profitable. So that was a shift, understanding that for a different industry, in a different category, that cheapness was, look, Chuck Meat's still with us, so we still we still land and take the metro as opposed to, take a taxi or something like that. But that was just a little bit of an evolution, which was, you don't recreate a category on a shoestring. You're not, and we have a project. Our R&D center is called the Manhattan Beach Project. Was evocative of the Manhattan Project, which was, when they built the bomb, they said, let's get the best scientists in the world, let's invest heavily in it. What Ethan says, and I agree, is you don't solve a global problem on a shoestring. You've got to invest heavily. So that was a big mindset shift for me, and I'm fine. I'm still, still conservative on how I spend other cash, but there's certain things you got to be aggressive.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Awesome. Other questions, guys? Mikey Loudon.
As a leader for you, you went from just you and your partner starting Honest Tea to managing an entire team. So what tips or tricks did you have? Obviously you had to learn on the fly, but to kind of keep forming that culture and being a better leader every day.
I think your values, and this one reason these kind of meetings are so important. This is most people from around the country, so you don't all get together in a room like this and get to spend. And so this is the occasion where the values are transmitted. So I'm willing to bet you guys have some kind of competition thing happening sometime. I know we had some great dodgeball and even cornhole competitions. But you want people to get the values of the company. So use this occasion to transmit and reinforce what's important to you. So obviously for us, competitiveness is important. Camaraderie is important, transparency is important. You use those occasions, and then when people get back into the field, how do you keep that, communicating that? So for us, we had something called Afternoon Tea, which we put out, which was just an update on what's happening in the company. We had a conference call where we share it, and because whatever you communicate is what you're communicating. Meaning if you put a big emphasis on sales, and we put a daily sales update, the only thing people heard from the company every day was sales. You get
right.
It's because that ultimately that determines whether you're growing or not. And so you got to everything communicates, and you just got to think about what you're communicating.
Awesome. So Greg, our CFO, Greg, you got a question?
Oh yeah. So to the question of how are you going to succeed once others start to copy you?
Yeah.
And when you're talking about Honest Tea, you talked about how you were using better, a little more expensive ingredients than say Snapple was. Did you find that they were a little reluctant to copy you at first because while it might protect the market share,
Yeah.
might hurt their margins? How long did you get before the
Yeah.
copycats really started to threaten
Yeah,
your growth?
yeah, no, so the first thing they did was try to bring out less sweet drinks. And we knew going in that was gonna be a problem. Like Snapple is all about sweet, it's not just on Snapple, that's the proposition, sweet drinks. So to bring a less sweet Snapple is like, oh, wait, that doesn't make any sense. And so that, no surprise that didn't work. And then we saw it in the kids category. One of the things we had said, on our package was no high fructose corn syrup. And people would, even in Coke would say, oh, you shouldn't say that because you're demeaning high fructose corn syrup. So I know parents don't like it, so that's why we say it.
Should be.
and then Capri Sun finally made this big move, and literally you thought the package was no high fructose corn syrup, Capri Sun. It was bigger than the brand name. So they moved out of that. And then they moved to organic. And so that's when you got to hope your brand is built up, and stood for something. And then you just keep innovating with it and think of new packaging formats, new varieties. But you have to assume that others are going to follow. And I know, look how crowded the coffee category is, and you guys still continue to grow and emerge. So.
Greg, did you want to ask about avoiding cheapness?
No, I was gonna add on to that and say I definitely share your opinion on that. Everybody here can attest.
Well, look, it's great.
More on that, please. More.
No, it's great you guys are at Georgetown. That's it's a great way to think about it, which is it's cheaper than some fancy conference center, but but at the same time, it's like a good way to communicate that you're getting connected to your roots as well. And I'm sure Georgetown appreciates the chance to right.
I don't know how they feel about the super coffee bottles everywhere, but
No,
around campus.
that's fine.
So that's interesting that obviously Honest Tea is still around. You guys still created that brand relevance, but you also created a category, and that's the intention, right? This is a paradigm shift.
Yeah.
Do you hope? So obviously Beyond Meat is the leader, the first mover, still the first mover.
Yeah.
Do you hope to create a world that's filled with plant-based competition?
Oh, we are. For sure, the movement towards plant-based is so powerful now. So, yeah, but the reason that would work is if we grow the category, right? If we're all fighting, we have no interest in becoming the best-selling veggie burger. Like that's failure. If we take this category and the analog we use is look what happened in dairy. 20 years ago, dairy was just all cow's milk. Today, plant-based dairy is 13% of the dairy category, and growing much more quickly. And so we're confident, within 5 years, 13% of the meat category, the largest category in food, will be plant-based, and we're going to be the largest brand at that. That on its own is a $40 billion opportunity just in the United States. When we get globally, it becomes much bigger.
I love that. And you use the word or the phrase plant-based a lot. And how do you kind of use that in marketing? And versus vegan?
Yeah. Vegan is loaded. It's got all this other baggage with it. People think judgmental. People who, criticize you for what you're doing. Plant-based is much easier. It's accurate, but it's just a much more accessible term. Just the same way, and that's why your merchandising is so important. If when we entered the category, all the vegan stuff was in the freezer. We're like, all right, that's going to reach the 5% of the folks who are vegan. When we get to the meat category, we're reaching 95% of people who aren't necessarily saying I want a vegan product. They say I want some protein, and then we're part of that offering.
Yeah, and I asked you because same thing for us. Like we have a keto product.
Yeah.
But we don't ever talk keto.
That's right.
We want to talk low sugar, high protein.
Yeah, and that's why that off-shelf merchandising is so important too, because if someone only thinks, oh, I want coffee, they're going to go to a coffee cooler. But if they say, I want something refreshing, energizing, and meets other goals, and then they see it in that rack at Target, oh, okay, I'll just throw that in.
Yeah, it's brilliant. You talk about disrupting parts of the store. We have a presentation later on. We're going to be building super coffee displays in the bakery next to donuts, and next to the coffee beans.
I like that.
Different points of disruption.
Yeah.
Other questions, guys? What do you got? Frank?
We talked about organic and fair trade before, and while those certifications might not make sense for our company, we are starting to talk about impact.
Yeah.
Because we have a product with no sugar. So we talk about a little bit about the impact that Honest has on, some of the. Maybe talk about some of the trips to Arden.
Yeah, for sure. So we have impact, and we think about it a lot of different ways. So the first one is the consumer, right? The people drinking it, and we want to share those stories. And wherever people want to talk about how they've lost calories or gotten to a healthier lifestyle or moved to organic, we're always happy to talk about that. And then, we think about the next tier, it is the supplier community. And so we do want to show how what we're doing helps make a difference in these communities. So yeah, going to India, China, South Africa, Paraguay, where we source our sugar, to be able to talk about the people involved in the supply chain and the impact that their small decision to buy our product has. And so when we can bring that to life, that's something that really consumers enjoy learning about. It helps connect to that transparency. It also shows you're being mindful about your ingredients. You're putting care into it. You're investing in it. And I think that's another positive story that consumers, want to feel that way.
If you look at the homepage of the website, you
Yeah.
can see right there.
That's it.
Make no mistake about what the company stands for when it's very authentic, very real too. So
I think just a macro view on that is, not to get political, but I think consumers feel like there's distrust a little bit of government and of big companies sort of doing stuff without really telling them all that's going on. And so the more transparent we can be about that, I think consumers appreciate that.
awesome. Other questions, guys?
Yeah, we often talk about we sprint a marathon here.
Yeah.
So,
Combines both of those.
Yeah.
So I mean, it's the quality of the time spent, not necessarily the quantity of the time.
Yeah.
So do you have any hacks, like daily hacks or things that you do that help keep you present?
Yeah.
And make sure you're the best you.
Yeah, that's a good one. All right, so first thing is every morning when my wife and I wake up, we make the bed. Just to start, like, and
Together?
Yeah, because we both wake up around 5:30 and it's like, all right, let's make the bed. Whatever happens at the end of the day, we're gonna have a nice bed to get into. So that's all right, that's a good one. I always put in an hour of exercise right at the beginning of the day. I went for a run and a swim this morning, and it just I got to get that in to process everything that happened the day before, clear my mind, so that by the time I'm getting to work, I'm like, my mind is I've processed everything. I'm ready to go. I also have a really short commute, so both in LA and here in Bethesda, I bike to work, and it means no traffic, no worries about parking. Which are both like things I don't enjoy. And even in cold weather, I'd rather just walk through the snow. And so that's a good, those are good hacks. And then I talked about investing in that core. I always communicate with my sons, I mean my wife, I obviously communicate with every day, but my sons, we communicate every day. Not always on the phone, but we're just, whether it's texting or, and now that they're home, it's easier, but even when my son was in Israel, it's not a big thing. I mean, it's not like I'm talking to him for an hour each day, but it's just like, oh, hey, and just sort of staying connected to everyone I'm thinking about as much as I can. Those are some.
Yeah, and with everything, just a quick follow-up too, how do you, we were talking to a leadership coach actually the other day, just talked about the importance of being on time and present for meetings.
Yeah.
So many things are going on and the importance of that. Can you talk about any meeting prep and any principles you guys have around meetings?
Yeah, I like short meetings. Like, we don't need to talk for an hour about something we can decide in 10 minutes. So let's just, let's make that happen quickly. I also, one reason, if there's something that I want to get to, or that I know I'm going to do, let me do it right away. So that's why I respond quickly to emails. Like, if you don't hear from me, like, you may not hear from me at all. But in general, like, if I've got an answer, it's faster to give that answer right away than to, push it back, and then you're just procrastinating and stuff, So as much as I've got a thought, I'll just go after it right away. The only other one is I've got a great assistant now, Courtney, you guys know, and she's like on totally the same wavelength as me, and so if she's on the same wavelength, she'll know. I can just sort of force, say, hey, handle this, and she knows what I mean. Like, so getting people to be on the same wavelength. Counts.
Awesome. All right, we got time for one more.
I have a question, Seth.
Hey!
When did you know it was time to take an investment from Coke?
Yeah.
So as we grow and say we do the 90 million, it's gonna.
Yeah, it's a good question. And in the same time, what I've just gone through where I decided it was time to step away because I felt like the brand had its own life that was going to be good. So, what we did it in 2008. We were at 23 million in sales, so a lot smaller than you guys, and we took this investment from Coke. And the key was, it wasn't they weren't buying the company, they were investing. They're about 40% of it, and we had another 3 years to build the brand. And so then the key is it clear what the brand is? It was. Is it clear you got enough traction that this is scalable. So if we had just been selling our glass bottles, and it wasn't just a tad sweet, like that would have been a bad decision to sell. And one of the companies that, I don't know if it's around anymore, but they made a bad decision was Izzy. You guys remember that drink? They were out there and they were sort of not clear what they were doing, what their strategy was. They sold to Pepsi, and like I said, I don't see much Izzy around anymore because that was good. Yeah, Chipotle. But in general, they made that decision, I think, at the wrong time. And then do you feel like you're on the upswing? From our point of view, especially because the way we did our deal, we had to be confident there was still some good growth ahead. You've seen some companies that sort of like they grow and then they sort of level off, and you don't want to do it then because then there's not as much interest. So were we growing? Was the proposition proven? Was we confident there was growth ahead? And then also we were the top selling, we were the top brand in the category, organic bottled tea, and also the fastest growing. Felt like that was the momentum. Now, the second decision I just made this year was, is this the right time to step away from Honest Tea? And the feeling was, okay, we're now in every continent. We have scaled the business. What the business stands for is clear: organic, fair trade, less sweet. And so when I went, I go to Spain or to Sweden, and everywhere I went, I saw them launching organic, less sweet, Honest Tea, fair trade certified, first fair trade product Coke launch in Europe. It's like they got it. Now they don't necessarily have the same, in the U.S. at least, the same entrepreneurial mindset that I have, or that we had. But I wasn't worried about the brand getting compromised or taken in the wrong direction.
I think the adding to the reasons you left is Honest just launched Honest Coffee. You might know that that's a losing proposition with this team in the room here.
Yeah.
Well, no, in all seriousness, this was awesome.